The most difficult Total War campaign on the hardest level of difficulty. Total War Attila, Western Roman Empire, grand campaign without any gameplay mod. Now this is a notoriously difficult and divisive campaign because it's difficult, not necessarily for the right reasons, but man, there is so much misinformation about this. The biggest one is let's just pack up, move to Spain, turn pagan, and just try to wait out the Huns. Now that is actually a viable strategy, but do we want to hide in the corner, or do we want to try to take the reins as Flavius Stilicho and restore Rome's glory, keeping the entire empire intact? This is a late game example, turn 120, and I've started to meme about and just try a few things, but I'm going to start this video off with 10 basic steps that you need to implement whether you play as Western or Eastern Rome. These are the 10 things you need to do that I don't see really around anywhere else, and it's going to show why you need the other half of the empire, why you should remain Christian and not turn pagan, as well as a ton of things which you only find out the hard way, and so you don't ruin your campaign through either research, development, or even expanding. After this, we'll jump into the first 10 turns of exactly what you need to do, because the first few turns and the way you coordinate your empire is absolutely critical. If you don't do this right, you are screwed and you will never be able to recover, because this campaign snowballs against you and does not slow down, so you cannot let anything slip. It has the worst public order issues in the entire series. They're really frustrating. The only way to deal with it is to not actually deal with them in the first place. So I'm going to help you get through this, manage your military, and upgrade things in a way that's both cost effective as well as keeps up with the threats around you. Welcome to Elven Plot Armor, and this is the ultimate Western Roman Empire guide with the top 10 tips as well as the opening turns to hold the empire together. Now everything here is timestamped to help you for a guide of reference, but if you are at all considering playing this campaign, there is tens of hours drilled down into this single video, so I do recommend watching it through. Now in this late game example, I've deliberately got some things which are good and some things which are bad, so I can show you why we do the things we do and why you should never ever stray from the path. That is one thing about Attila you need to understand, is that you cannot have fun in this campaign. This campaign is not fun. It's about using the handful of few strategies that work and just trying to stop anything from going bad, because there are penalties for penalties for penalties in this game. It is just frustrating and ridiculous. It's fun as long as everything goes right. So it's all about never letting a single thing go wrong, and I'm going to explain to you the traps that you can fall into. So starting off with tip number 1, and that is to eliminate everyone. That means if you see a tribe, have a look in the diplomacy screen, see if you can see 1 or 2 stacks, and then eliminate them on the same turn. If you know you can take them out and do not let them run away. That means fighting manually and route down every single troop so you get them to within 10% of their starting numbers, so you kill the army. In Total War Warhammer, if you fight the same army twice, they automatically die. Does not happen in this game. They can run away with 1 or 2 people, and they're super cowardly. They'll run away up into the steps here, make another stack, and they'll come down and pillage you when you're not expecting it. So you must eliminate them. So what's good about this campaign? Well, all the Goths, Franks, everyone is basically dead, except for we're predominantly dealing now with the steppe nations out here. Markomans have now been dethroned and they're just a horde army, and we have the Burgundians here, but they're not actually at war with us. Now this is really important because any tribe that's in here will start raiding. Raiding of course ruins your public order, and as you know, this game is a revolt simulator, and what the game doesn't tell you is it traps you. There is a climate change event later which makes all of your farms effectively useless, so food will become a very rare commodity. Raiding takes away food and will start to generate one of the biggest public order penalties, which is when you lack enough food. So you don't want tribes in here. The only ones that you should let through there with a free pass is the Huns. I think we've got one there. Yep, we've got a couple there, and that's fine because the Huns, we'll get into that soon, we want to keep them on side. So we can deal with the Hunnic ones being there. Everyone else we want to keep out of there, and ideally have an idea where their other armies are as well. So that's for the hordes. Now if they have settlements, raise the settlements. First sack, then raise. This formula is non-negotiable. Do not occupy anything outside of the confines of the traditional Danubian Roman Empire, right? So we start off with British inferior and superior. You'll see through with my build that we don't abandon these. Never abandon, by the way. That abandoning, that's another piece of information that's not correct. Don't abandon your settlements. It causes a massive spike in public order due to uncertainty, and it winds down only 1 point each turn. The only time you should ever abandon is if you're just doing a single territory. Like just say you're down here, you want to get rid of that so you don't deal with the revolts. That's cool, maybe abandon that. Do not bulk abandon things. Instead, we dismantle all the buildings in there, sell all the buildings, and just try to fend off the revolts for as long as we can, and eventually when they do win, it will spawn a new minor faction. Now if you do things correctly, just get peace with them. They'll pay for peace, and then the moment that happens, having a look here, it flips the relationship into a really positive one. This also means they'll now start fighting the revolts that generate around you here. So I've deliberately had this one here revolt, and as you see, this New Britain faction is taking them out for us. And this is the only province at all we even remotely resemble abandoning. Everything else will hold, but this one here, we want to get away from here in the short term. So we basically sell everything up, fight the revolts for as long as we can, and eventually this faction will come up, make peace with them, and then hopefully they'll destabilize and they'll fight between themselves, buying you enough time to recover. Now that's all well and good in Brittania because you don't actually need these provinces to support you, but in the other areas in the empire you absolutely will need them, or a single revolt with one damaged building causes a devastation penalty which will then snowball into other issues. Down in Africa as well, you will want to keep these rather safe because they do provide a lot of food. That's quite realistic. And of course, when the time does come, we raze their settlements. Don't take anything. As you see here, we ventured out, we raze them to the ground, burn them to the ground, burn them to the ground. And if they have to run away, then pay for peace just to get rid of them for the time being. But do not occupy anything unless you're reoccupying land that you've taken. So how are we doing in this campaign? Well, let's take a look here. The Eastern Roman Empire has lost most of Greece, so I decided to make a play for it and take Constantinople. Stilicho always wanted to do that, so why not? Now, that's actually been a bit of an issue because now we need armies here to try and garrison this, but also the Eastern Roman Empire is on the ropes, so we're having to also send armies out here to assist them. So it's starting to spread us a little bit too thin. You have to babysit provinces for a really, really long time in this game for them to be beneficial, so just don't take them. I know it's horrible, but either burn them to the ground or get the settlement trading mod, which allows you to capture it and gift it straight back to the Eastern Roman Empire, and they can use their superior AI growth to build it up for you. But honestly, at this point here, just burn them to the ground. I know it sounds crazy, just burn them. The only settlements you should keep are the ones that are religiously significant, say Alexandria here. I've taken that, that's cool. We've got Constantinople, why not? I'd take Antioch if they'd lost that. Down here, here's a mistake. I took a random settlement in Libya, and what's it gonna do? Well, look, it revolted, and they build armies really quickly because it's legendary AI, and now I'm having to pin them in and we'll have to dedicate a force to taking them out. It's annoying playing like a Hun, but just burn everything to the ground outside of your territory. Tip number 3 is save the Eastern Roman Empire. There is a really big general consensus out there of just break the alliance so you don't get dragged into wars, but my answer to that is, so what? Who cares? You will need the war with Sassanids at some point because you'll want to direct the Huns towards the Sassanids. The single biggest reason why you need to maintain your relationship with the Eastern Roman Empire is because of this. Look how much money they give us for trade. Late game, that's nearly 11,000 gold. And at the start of the game, it starts off at 2,000 gold. A sure way to screw your economy in the early game is to lose the trade agreement with the East. The only way you can maintain it afterwards is by probably paying them to take a marriage alliance off you. So try to keep it if you can. If not, try to just pay for a marriage, and then that'll keep the relationship good enough so they don't break the trade. But that trade is critical, guys, really important. And this is what it looks like when you are completely fucked by Brittania because you didn't get to ally one of these and they're all against you. Don't let that happen, that is a big mistake. Just a quick reminder, guys, if you are enjoying the video, please consider liking and subscribing, it really helps out. Ask any question in the comments, I answer everything. And if you'd like to talk strategy, feel free to join the Discord. Cheers. Tip 4 is keep the Huns and the Desert Kingdoms here on side in the early game particularly. Well, the Huns the entire game. At some point, these Desert Kingdoms will probably declare war on you. These guys are still cool with us and they're giving us a lot of trade, but when you start the game, as you see when we do the actual walkthrough, you will want positive traits on these guys. You don't want anyone that's aggressive, opportunistic. You want people that are defensive and typically reliable, right? Because we want no trouble from here until we stabilize the big issues around this part of the empire here. So even Garamania down here, feel free to give them a marriage, but just on these guys, do not underestimate them. When your troops walk through the desert, you take attrition. Walking from point A to point B, your number of troops will just degrade. Do not underestimate it. If they do declare war, build up a big army and then march it down. So you want to delay this war for as long as possible and just treat it with the seriousness that it deserves. As for the Huns, that should be obvious. Now the Huns, the most important thing to do is to keep on directing them away from your empire. Get them to join wars against these guys here, right? Make their enemies your enemies. This is the most important thing you can do, is to get them on side. You keep on sharing enemies, your relationship will improve. So just pay for them. They always have a price. I also got them to join a war against the Burgundians up here, and I think I've peaced out with the Burgundians, right? But that's the thing, they're still at war with the Huns, but the Huns have been raiding them and giving them a hard time. If they're busy with the Huns, they're too busy to attack you, right? So a lot of what you're doing is keeping people occupied. So keep giving the Huns enemies, particularly the moment that the Sassanids declare war on the Eastern Roman Empire, your military alliance will pull you into that. Good. This way we can get the Huns to join our war against the Sassanids. So that is something that is super important. If you have a look at the situation here, one thing I did not do well this campaign, right, is currently, let's look at the Huns. So the Huns, they're okay with me. I keep on doing marriage alliances and whatnot to keep them on side. But look, I managed to get them to declare war on the Sassanids. Now the Huns, as long as you give them enough gold, they will do what you want. They can be bought out. It might cost a lot, but you might have to give them, say, 20, 30,000 gold, but they will declare war on the Sassanid Empire, which they have done here. This means you'll see an inversion of the relationship with the Eastern Roman Empire, and they'll start focusing this way. Problem I did here, I took too long, right? The moment that these two go to war with each other, put some money aside and pay the Huns to join that war. What happened here is I waited too long. The reverse happened. The Sassanids paid the Huns to join the war on the east, and it just couldn't handle it. We had the Huns coming through here and then just punching the crap out of them there. Now, why do we want to save the Eastern Roman Empire? Shouldn't we just gouge them and just direct all the pain there? Well, the thing is, they are our arm. They are actually the way we can reach out. We want to use a few armies to keep our public order under control, but the way we're going to punch and attack the Sassanids is through the Eastern Roman Empire. They are an AI-controlled faction on Legendary, even when working with you, so they can hire faster, build faster. They can do everything, right? And it's battles that you don't need to fight. So the idea is, when you do go to support them, don't just send trash stacks over there. I'm going to show you later. This will be our military province. Build 1 or 2 really good stacks. Send Stilicho and another general all the way over here, and then just help them fight back some major engagements. So we're at turn 120 now, and a bit too much damage has probably happened, but we can easily make do here, right? Would have been better though if we had just got the Huns to go attack the Sassanids. Would have kept these guys stronger, and more importantly, it gets the Huns out of our hair. Attila's currently down here. Again, make sure you get the jump on him. We've got too many issues with the Sassanids. Deal with the Sassanids or have them at least curtailed before you go for the Huns, because when Attila arrives around turn 100, the Huns will just keep respawning until Attila dies. Now, you have to kill him twice. First time, you'll get he's only a man. The second time, you'll put him away. But just make sure that you're ready. We're not currently ready. We could use a couple more stacks around here, and like I said, I shouldn't have taken this. I should have just burnt this to the ground, and we could get the jump on Attila and wound him just there. Now, the other reason we want to have the choice of being friendly with Attila is because this means we can get the jump on him and attack him when we're ready. And when are we ready? Well, we're ready once we have small settlements at tier 4, and the major settlements, they don't need to be at tier 3 because they already have walls, but tier 3 will turn them into fortresses, right? But most importantly, getting tier 4 walls on these minor settlements on your frontier will basically just halt their advance. I mean, they might go in a bit further to get undefended settlements, makes the Huns string themselves out and them easier to destroy. But the catch with upgrading these settlements is they use a ton of food. 80 food each for every tier 4 settlement, which as you can guess is a lot, and it doesn't sound like much at the start, but there is a climate change event which basically makes all your farms worthless. So in the build that I give you, you're going to be focusing more on fishing as well as market emporiums to develop your food, because again, another piece of misinformation, people say just build farms everywhere. That is a short-term tactic and it will not help you come the mid-game. And that nicely takes me to point number 5, and that is to stay with Christianity. Changing to Greco-Roman paganism is the biggest short-term gain for long-term pain that you can possibly do. What this does is, because most of the Christian buildings require gold, they do give public order, but they do require gold. The pagan buildings, they use food instead. Now early game, you have a ton of food because your farms are excellent. Mid game onwards, you start running out of food. You'll have tons of gold, but you won't have any food. You'll gladly have the gold just to pay for churches, to help increase the Christianity as well as the public order. Honestly, this campaign being so hard, I think most people probably don't make it far enough to actually see this bite them in the ass, but it will bite you in the ass, just like building lots of farms will bite you in the ass. Also, everyone usually starts their campaigns by knocking down all the churches. Not necessary. Pillage everything out of Brittania, that'll give you enough gold to get yourself started, and it's giving you public order. Yes, you're losing some gold for it, but it is giving you public order. Slowing down these revolts is key to holding the wider empire together. I mean, the proof is in the pudding here. We've only focused on Christianity, but the religious penalties are actually quite low in this game. I mean, we've had a revolt here, but have a look here. So, look at that. Food can get to a maximum of -20. Religious differences is -2. With the Western Roman Empire, maybe 4 at the most I've ever seen, but typically it's only like 1, 2, or 3. Compare that to food. Food being -20, as well as additional effects down here, and if you have a empire-wide shortage, instead of getting this nice growth and replenishment bonus, you'll get a ton more penalties. Again, these penalties snowball and snowball, right? So running out of food, really, really bad. These frontier provinces, you will deliberately run at a deficit of food because they take so much in order to have these high level buildings, as well as your primary recruitment hub over here. This will also run a deficit, but that's fine because we're at a frontier. We will have armies here anyway guarding the frontier, so they can just fight any revolts here. So this is by design, having a food deficit on the frontier, but we need it to be adequate back there. There are a ton of events, like every 10-20 turns, you'll get global buffs to Christianity that will help it develop over through the empire. So it's not just the churches, right? You have more help than what the game would actually otherwise indicate. Tip 6, correct use of character and army skills. Now, part of the fun of this is that we get to play as Flavius Stilicho and kill the idiot emperor before that idiot emperor kills him and basically destroys the Western Empire. So we're going to be playing as Stilicho, but we need to be able to hold this territory. Now, while the buildings won't give you enough public order themselves, the actual characters can, as long as you kit them up correctly. So let's have a quick look at that. This is an up-and-coming general here. He is level 8, and this shows you, this is basically non-negotiable, guys. They'll have their own unique skill here, but the first choice must always be, you get 2 points per level, so down to here, both of those to unlock this and get 2 points in this. Plus 20% campaign movement range is absolutely essential, okay? And this gives you also increase in melee attack, but extra movement is absolutely critical in this game. That must be your first stop regardless, because you'll be putting out spot fires for ages, as well as trying to chase enemies that just want to run from you. Now after that, again, another non-negotiable, 2 points in this, which gives you +4 public order, okay? Really, really useful. Just by being stationed in an area, eventually you'll have these guys sitting in a certain province for a while just to build the public order back up, and then they'll be hopping to the next one, maybe swatting down a rebellion or 2. Also, this skill is great because it gives you cunning, which for generals is the most important stat, because as cunning rises, you get a upkeep cost reduction, which maxes out at 14% if you get all the way up there. So again, really great. Once you've unlocked that, just 1 point in everything else, and then get 2 points in the final skill, which boosts local growth and every other stat by a fair bit. So nice and easy. So movement, public order, and then the final stat, nice and easy. But in addition to this, you get household items, and these can be excellent. The most notably useful ones are ones that decrease the upkeep of your units, like here. We're going to be majority infantry, so anything that drops infantry upkeep, awesome stuff. This is the most important one, artist. Protect your units that have this at all costs. Alright, if at any point in time, if you're going to lose a battle or you're worried about a general and think they're going to die, either trade them out by clicking this button and put them in with a new one, or just basically disband them, or even just peel these off them if you can't save them, because you lose these. You lose the general, you lose these. So once the general, this guy's 67, so might look at taking these off him, because once they die, you lose the household item. Keep that in mind, these are arguably more important than the generals themselves. Now, in addition to the general themselves, you can raise an army at any point, and your actual armies have what are called military traditions. Even get the whole legion destroyed, you can re-raise it and then attach these traditions to them. So it's basically a mobile skill tree. And there's one really important one. First stop, it should be this. +4 public order, so +2 then +4, so 2 points in that. So quite early on, you'll be able to get +8 public order just from the stat lines alone, and this will be essential. Add that extra 5 on there, now we're really talking. Down here, an extra plus 10 melee defense, yes please. I'll just rush to that one, that's excellent. So we'll get to the officers in a second, but over here in the governors, you want to, whenever you see a governor with this trait, the increase in tax rate, take that and make sure you put them as a governor. Now you do not need a governor to turn off the tax rate, which can just be done with the bottom right button there, and there's a small box here to turn the tax on and off. This will improve public order, but it will stop tax revenue, but it will also stop them contributing the food to the empire as well, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Personally, I don't bother doing it. The only times I ever do it is if I need one extra turn to get an army there by, say, the mid-game, because at this point you'll see that the revolts get much more nasty and much harder to deal with, and you can't just beat them with your basic garrisons like you can in the early game. However, leveling up your governors, this guy is pretty great. He's got the perfect administrator trait. Now the first stop is just 1 point here, and of course get yourself that extra public order and that extra cunning, and then get 2 points in this. It's the big difference. Your first stop should be to lower corruption by 10% in this province. These are the key ones, but there's also some fantastic household traits. Anything that says local province, yes, that will work for a governor. There's some really great ones like this, which are really great uniquely for the governor. If in doubt as well, extra public order will really keep that thing stabilized. You can use this to get bread and circuses. Bread and circuses is the only edict you should ever use because it gives you +4 public order and +20 food production. Early game, this can put you into the positive food. As for spies, spies can actually be quite useful. Spies, whilst they can of course spy, which is really important, they've got this ability called investigate corruption. Now your provinces will lose stupid amounts of money to corruption just by virtue of the size of your empire, so just having them sit on the edge, on the outer outskirts, and then just investigate corruption, they will earn their keep back several times over, particularly in rich settlements, but I personally prefer them on the frontier so they can venture out. As well as priests, just have them, deploy them, they'll help that religious conversion as well. Now just quickly onto politics, civil wars in this game are fucking terrible. If you get a civil war, honestly, just do what you can to either kill it in one go. Like I said, you would need to fight your fights manually in this one and try to eradicate the entire army so they don't run away. Every turn they're alive, they give you a massive penalty to public order as well as loyalty around the board. And guess what? When other generals' loyalty hits 0, they revolt as well, and it just causes, again, this is Attila, it's just a negative snowball. The way you deal with it is just don't let it happen. How can you do this? Well, of course, with the officers, the way that you appoint people here, I actually recommend using a mod which doesn't give you the penalties for accidentally promoting someone in the wrong order, because that's just annoying in my opinion, because I just really don't care. But I did it without it anyway, here we are. But yeah, so basically promoting them in the wrong order can do that. You press this button here so you can see their loyalty and influence, and if the loyalty is getting low, just quite simply, it's really good to grab a wife who maybe has enough influence to do it, and then just get them to secure loyalty. Now, this is your domain here, and currently our power is respectable. You want it between acceptable and respectable. So Dominion is when you have all of your senators and generals here, including the ones in your family. What percentage of overall influence is controlled by you and your family? Currently we have 76% of it, and you combine that with control. Control is just your chance of success when you try to do something. May that be adopt someone, try to assassinate someone, whatever, it's all fine. But one thing is once your wife gets too old at Stilicho, just be a player, divorce her like that, and then get a new one, preferably someone who's Hunnic. As you can see here, I've got myself a Hunnic wife. I don't know what that'd do for public order, having a half Vandal and a Hun sitting on the throne. Maybe we're not that realistic after all. Now what's important is to make sure that your emperor has more influence than everyone else. So Stilicho's currently got 300 of it. There's a few ways to do this, but there's some traits which will actually give you +2 influence every earning situation. Really recommend that on the big dog early on. It'll keep him nice and strong. If your control, i.e. your chance of success, is getting too low, just get someone to gather support, and that will increase that and increase your chance of success. Any women that are left alone, you can try to get them married and use that for your alliances. And other than securing loyalty and making kids, the only other one you might want to do is embezzle funds. What's important is for your faction leader, your emperor. So once you've taken control from Honorius, I'll show you how to do that. Once you've got Stilicho in charge, you want him to be leading many battles, right? So you want your family members to be at the forefront, earning as much influence as possible, which typically comes from winning battles, right? Also, a funny fact, he married a Hunnic wife, and she's cheated on him, and his heir doesn't look much like him at all. Tip number 7, restore the legions. We are going to harken back to the glory days where we were basically specialists in melee heavy infantry, and we're going to be outsourcing everything else. We're going to hire our cavalry, ideally steppe cavalry, Germanic tribes to do our archery for us, and if we find any discount catapults, keep them because they tend to be a bit expensive. Now, let's just address the mercenary factor. Price is everything. If you can often find some archers that are only going to cost, say, 70 gold per turn, which is really cheap and is a lot better and cheaper than the archers you can typically produce. So when you walk into a new province, you'll have a new mercenary recruitment pool. As you see here, archers, they can't take a hit, but that's fine. They can still shoot arrows. Just always choose the armor piercing rounds at the start of each battle, and they tend to do quite well. If you can't be bothered, armor piercing, it's a safe and steady way. However, the secondary icon here, if there is another horde or another army, you can hire mercenaries from them. We have Attila the Hun here, and we have Hunnic horse archers. Now, typically the rule of thumb is if a unit is over 200 gold, don't keep it around. Maybe raise it. Fight what you need to, win your engagements, take whatever settlement, and then disband them to keep your costs down. This is the exception to the rule. If you find Hunnic horse archers, if you have to get rid of them, you have to get rid of them, but try to keep them around. They are an excellent, flexible unit. They can charge, they can hit, and most importantly, they can of course shoot with the flexibility of horse archers. Now, because we're only building one type of unit and we're basically hiring the rest as cheap as possible, this is a great way of keeping our costs down. It also means we can virtually hire an entire army anywhere, but if you're anywhere with a barracks, make sure you hire as many swordsmen as possible, because typically you can only hire the spearmen, which are the better unit, but they do cost a little bit more. So just try to do what you can to try to keep that. I know I like to have at least half swordsmen, if not more, just because that cost reduction. Also, we only have one recruitment province in the entire empire, and it's just north of Italy. It's right here, and that is Maxima Secundum, and this is an excellent province to have because it's on the frontier, so it's going to be running at a food deficit anyway, because that's what happens when you upgrade these buildings to tier 4 to get the walls on them, right? Frontier, you want walls, and guess what? I want my most heavily armed warriors on the front line here, so at any point in time we can raise a unit and we've got all of our best guys with the best armor and equipment available. The upgrade buildings you should get are the armory, which will increase the armor itself as well as the shield effectiveness. Given your legionaries will all have the scutum shield, that means you're going to make great use of this, and of course weaponsmithing to increase the melee damage. The archers and the cavalry you pick up along the way will be able to hang, but you'll start to notice them taper off. Again, being friendly with the Huns, you'll have them crawling through your territory, but you'll be able to hire some Hunnic horse archers from those stacks. So just focusing on the infantry, and then when your final slot unlocks in this province, get the cavalry building and then start building some high tier cavalry to support, and hopefully that'll come just at the end and you'll be able to hang a little bit better. So the tech tree is how we manage our legions. Now, a lot of people will go for the military route first. Now this is a mistake because, well, at first it looks good because every unit that you upgrade here, your spearmen get upgraded, every garrison will also have those upgraded units. So this means you'll be able to keep up with the enemy in your siege defenses. But you can no longer hire the old variant, which means you're stuck with the new upkeep. So you want your early stages of the game to be recruiting as many of these lower cheap units as you can, because you'll be putting out a lot of spot fires and you'll need a lot of armies. So you must learn this first block, absolutely first priority. So all 4 of these first, and then that. When you learn everything inside a whole block, you get this additional passive, so +2 growth in all provinces, yes please. Now, come say turn 15 or so, you'll still be able to hang with your basic units, but you might need an upgrade. Now, you have 2 types of units. You've got your swordsmen, which are these guys, and you have your spearmen. Now, the swordsmen have really great melee defense as line holders, but their melee attack's a bit bad. On the other hand, spears will be your offensive infantry. They can brace against cav, but they have much better melee attack, and of course they have a bonus against large, which means they're really good at piking horses to death. Now, the early swordsman upgrades are awful, but the ones with the spears are pretty good. Around turn 15-20, if you're feeling the heat, learn this first technology here, or once you've learned this first block, learn this first one here. If everything's still running smooth, feel free to pay what you need to learn some more global public order bonuses from here, as well as getting level 3 food markets and emporiums, of course, is important. But after this, you will want to put some points in here to get the 10% discount for melee infantry. Because you took longer, you've got more of the cheaper infantry, and now you're discounting that again. So you're really getting some mileage here for lots of low tier units because you only need enough to win. You don't need to overspend here. Keep on upgrading everything in your second block here till you maybe notice some battles getting a bit tougher, at which point get yourself invested across here and then learn this technology here, which will again increase your spearmen. What's better is the upgrade prior to this will also increase your swordsmen, meaning your garrisons will be all around more strong and able to keep punching up, and you should be able to destroy armies that are roughly at least say another half to double the size of yours. But you need to keep up in the technology. If you don't keep up here, you'll notice yourself falling back. If you upgrade too soon, you'll find yourself getting too broke. So this is quite a careful thing. So you just want to make sure you've got enough there. So you'll want to then complete this second block of civil technologies, as well as trying to get this first bracket here of the military technologies. And then after this, priority technology here is the Barbarian Enclave, as this gives you the level 4 buildings for your minor settlements to build up walls, which you will need, say, come sort of turn 70. But again, only when you've got the time. Now once the bank starts rolling, you'll definitely want to get new tactics, get your Legio Comitatenses, and you'll also want to upgrade this for an upkeep reduction across your entire empire. To be honest, from here it's really all about just keeping units up to date with the enemy, so get the armory and weaponsmith, and then I'd definitely focus on getting this civil block here completed. Gives you a bit more religious osmosis, and it will give you plus 3% more tax rate, and then just go bananas from here. You'll probably be able to focus more on military after that, but that's the gradual thing, so you want to just bump up the spears and let it lag, and then bump up the swords afterwards. It's kind of a tit for tat thing. It'll keep you on top, and as long as you can keep on winning your siege defenses against the revolts, you're going to be okay. But if you don't do this the right way, you go broke or you'll get beaten by revolts. So that's how you manage it. Tip number 9, win everything and spare nobody. This means that you have to fight all of your battles manually, because unlike in Total War Warhammer, where you just win 2 battles in the same turn, that army can't escape, it's completely destroyed. Not the case here. It's all about dealing enough damage in a single battle. So even a great big army, as long as you reduce it to, you know, sort of roughly 10% of its starting numbers, you will eradicate that army, and it is crucial that you do so. If, as an example here, I just auto-resolved a revolt that had decided to run away, build itself back up and attack again, but I just tested, auto-resolved, and guess what? It's going to come back again. There's devastation to the settlement. There is damaged buildings that will need to repair over time. By the way, don't ever repair your buildings. They will automatically repair over time. The repair cost in this game is atrocious. Don't repair, just win your revolts and win them in a single battle and just completely wipe them out. So your cavalry is so important for running down the enemy units, if nothing else. So the majority of the battles you'll do will be siege defenses, so make sure just find the tower as far away from everyone as possible, so they have to move through and take out the other towers, taking the damage as they go, and then just put your testudo up the front, making sure they can't go in the circle of control for that tower, and that tower will do all the damage. So this is all about your line holders holding them still while the tower just peppers them until they fall. The Roman signature testudo formation is really good. It's great. It'll stop you taking missile damage, and you can just stand there against weak missiles, let them waste their ammo, and then finish them off. Later game arrows, this isn't such a good idea, but it's a great way of holding your morale together, because Attila is a game of morale breaking, not about taking damage. So that's why you can get away with having weak archers, because it's more about the morale effect of the arrows hitting them than the damage they're actually doing. Cavalry charges are very decisive, so that single unit of cavalry, you've got to be super careful with it, keep it out there and just have it scout out and just run away from the settlement. Once the enemy units come in, then send that cavalry out, destroy their catapult, then come in and just start bashing their archers, and then when that's done, rear charge their infantry, and you'll be able to defeat armies consistently, almost double the size of yours, if not that big, right? Just by following this. Some control issues with this: they don't automatically run in this game, so instead right click and draw a new line and you will see they just automatically run. This is the best way of quickly darting around the battlefield. If you want to charge, even just a single right click and then press the R button, and that means they'll run, and that will get them to charge in. Last little control hack: if you have a catapult handy, put the flaming rounds in it always, because it devastates their morale. Hold Alt and then right click in an area that has enough wiggle room so it won't hit your guys but will devastate their numbers, and watch their numbers as well as their morale plummet. This is usually the better way to go because I tend to bomb my own soldiers into oblivion when I leave it up to the catapult. Here's a really great tip: if an enemy is a good distance away, don't just double click on it. For some reason they charge really slow. Instead, just keep on drawing lines up there and they will run there as if there's nothing going on way quicker than they will if they're charging across the battlefield. In this game, wasting ammo doesn't really work, but there is a trick in forts. If you want to, you can send your cavalry out, scout ahead, and you can catch the attention of their cavalry. Run around the fort within the range of your towers and you'll be able to shred a good number of their cavalry out. Done properly, you can eliminate their cavalry from the situation. Make sure you use your general abilities, really useful for increasing morale or decreasing their morale. And always have a battle timer on, maybe 40 minutes or an hour. 20 minutes can sometimes be too short for sieges, but sometimes they'll just wait around and it's unfavorable for you. If you draw, you don't lose. It's all about not losing. You can kind of cheese this if you want to. That being said, if the enemy is attacking and they refuse to attack, why should you give that territory up? It's a bit of an AI bug and this is the way to get around it. So if you can draw, absolutely draw. You can really extend the length of time with a battle if you have a navy there, but at the tail end of the battle, they'll force you to dock your units, but you can let the timer still burn out again so long as you still got enough morale on the field. As for your characters, make sure you never ever lose them. If you think that they're a bit precarious out here on a front line, he might die, just select the character and then boot him out. Replace the general with someone new who you don't care. These household items, you will lose those permanently if they die. And as you can tell, this one's giving him 10% extra movement range, pretty damn good. So these household traits are incredibly important to keep, as well as once you get some experience on a general, they can move themselves an extra 20% further. They can decrease public order, they can decrease their own upkeep. So experienced generals are key, keep them alive, and again, just don't lose battles. Now just to touch on, when you win a battle, it'll give you the option for ransoming, replenishment, execution. Just replenish every single time. Even when it's a garrison, replenishment is really bad in this game. Even your garrisons need to replenish and they'll be having to defend a lot. So just get the replenishment each time. It's not worth risking the integrity. Because of loyalty, civil wars, it's not worth it. Just replenish each time. It's just a nice mindless thing to do. You got enough to deal with you. The enemy units seem to upgrade, say every maybe 5, 10, 15 turns, and you will notice this and will severely ramp up the difficulty of your siege defenses. So when this does happen, make sure you pull out your trusty research, and it usually just means upgrade your spears, upgrade your swords, spears, and then your swords again. Once you get to this point here, you can probably handle most things and then use the armories to increase their viability, but just making sure that you don't rush to these because you can only hire the brand new units. So you want enough of the old unit kicking around just beating up simple revolts, and then you want your good units on the frontier, and that's where you want to put your money because they're the real threats. But you don't need a high tier army of Legio Comitatenses in turn 20 just beating up revolts. It's a complete waste of money, and I think a lot of people bankrupt themselves off this incorrect advice to pursue high tier units early on. The only time this is viable or is the way to go is if you have retreated back into Spain and you've just got a couple of really big territories. That's when you need your numbers to count. But if you're across a big spanning empire, you need to make things cost effective. And just remember, the battles you're going to lose are more important to fight than the ones you're going to win. It is so critical to take out the siege equipment and to deal as much damage as possible. Auto-resolving will take away maybe 5 to 10% of their numbers. They'll replenish those over the end turn. You need to take out a good quarter to half of their armies. Like if the result is you not taking away at least as many enemies as they took off you, it's not going to work out well. So make sure you do everything properly, fight your losses, and just grind them down really bad. Best thing is if a revolt creates a brand new faction, that faction, just say you shred them to pieces, but they barely win. They take the settlement, you shred them so bad, they will peace out with you because they know that they've got nothing defending themselves. So even then, you can make a new trade partner, and that's exactly what we do in Britain, and it's what we can do in other areas as well. Now for the last and certainly not least tip, which is Statecraft, and these are the 4 elements that you need to know, and if a building does not address these, then don't worry about it. There is so much bloat in this game and it's completely unnecessary, particularly with the Roman factions. The system is so restrictive, you essentially just spam the same buildings in every province because you can't have any flexibility because everything just collapses. So these are the only buildings you should ever build. So the step one, you should just prioritize this, which is the governor's estate. Build this in every single province. Each turn, at the start of your game, building this here. The reason why it's great is it uses some food consumption, but it will give you the best buff to public order whilst also providing some wealth. So it's great. It's only half a step back, but 2 big steps forward. Excellent. That should be your first thing you build absolutely everywhere. As previously mentioned, you should try to avoid farms. I can count on one hand the number of farms that I've built. Upgrade the farms that are there, but in terms of building new ones, I don't build many of them unless I have to get that extra food to stop you from getting that negative penalty. But typically, you want your food to come from fishing jetties. So you need level 3 fishing jetties when you can, so long as that doesn't set everything out of balance. And in conjunction with that, you will need some form of sanitation. Sanitation can be done one of 2 ways. Either have one building at the capital, the aqueduct network, don't worry about the other one. And the alternative is, if we go here, you want 2 of the thermae, which is the minor settlement equivalent, and you just want one of these in each of the minor provinces. The best configuration will be a combination between how it starts out or where there might be a resource. Which brings me to the next part, which is if there are resources, always get those, but don't always upgrade them. Some are great to upgrade, some are not, because they aren't all equal. Olives and wine seem to by far be the best because they also provide some public order, which as we know is a precious commodity. Some of the other ones do have some drawbacks. Now you will need some lead to be able to upgrade your churches to tier 3, but honestly I find that for now tier 2 churches, if we're at turn 120, tier 2 churches seem to be more than enough, honestly. Maybe we could do a couple of these, but you can get some lead up here in Brittania, or you can get it by typically trading with the Eastern Roman Empire, who will have it right there. I don't knock down my churches, but I also typically don't build many of them due to that extra cost. But as previously mentioned, as you can see, we don't have issues with money, but we could have issues with food. Building in military provinces and big frontier cities does a massive drain on your food, and we've managed to build across our frontier here. All the minor settlements here have tier 4, i.e. walls, meaning they'll be harder to take. However, that's a huge drain on the food, and this is why we stay Christian, because we pay for our churches with money, not with food. Like if we turn pagan right now, we'd be running a deficit. And remember, the food penalty is -20. It goes to -20 here. And look, we've got enough food and it gives us a +4. That's not massive, but at the same time, it's given that religious penalties are only -2, -3, this is obviously, in my opinion, by far the better way to go. So speaking of upgrading capital buildings, when else should you do it? You know what, I basically don't do it anywhere. It's really expensive. It puts a massive toll and drain on there. The only times I do it are for the military setup here, as well as for the frontier provinces. Outside of these, I really don't do it. Of course, these tier 4 provinces with the military buildings are going to have something like -300 food, but that's okay because the negative food penalty stops at -20. So yes, it's going to have terrible public order here, but we're raising our military here. We've got armies to deal with it. We don't care about this, right? What we do care about is keeping everything back here without any barbarians kicking around, raiding, ruining the public order of the situation, with the correct number of armies around so they can just swat down things as they happen. You will have the occasional province which just still has some public order issues, and that's because here, this is the gold building. Even if you just hold gemstones for a single turn, it's worth getting it to upgrade this building, and this will give you 5% for trade agreement. Now also on trade resources as well, always check to see if you're actually using these before you increase your amount. As you can see here, we're only exporting 87% of furs. Does that mean we should upgrade our fur building? Absolutely not. We're not even going to sell it. However, if we look at there we go, so marble, for example. Marble, if we wanted to increase our marble supply, then we'd be able to sell that. We've actually got 2 marble buildings here, so we can do that. Now, upgrading the marble building is okay as well. It gives you an increase to your state religion, and if you upgrade that to tier 3, it'll give you +2. So again, you got to consider, is this going to create instability in an area where I can't quite easily swat down the revolts? You got to answer that one for yourself. But again, if you follow what I say and don't expand, if you don't expand, you won't be stretched too thin. This single army can deal with these 2, this can deal with that. Don't do this, don't do that. Just keep within your starting provinces and just upgrade those. raise everyone outside of it, and you won't have any problems. In terms of your civil technology upgrades, it'll look like this. Step 1, of course, is getting the governor's estate, nice buff to income. Step 2 is to get this, to get your level 3 fishing wharfs. Don't be shy to transition your military wharfs over to fishing wharfs. The level 4 food emporium is the other way of getting food. So basically where you can do it and you can balance it, you want to have either fishing ports or food emporiums. These are the best way of getting food, and they are completely unaffected by climate change. And then of course getting your walls up to tier 4 is also important. And the last quick thing about civil administration is I'll let you know some settlements have a wonder here. You don't have to build it, it's just a passive buff here, and you can see here, this one gives you some buff to military developments as well as some faction growth. There's another one here at Mauritania which gives you faction movement. Up here in England we have Stonehenge. We took Alexandria, and another great reason is because we get the wonder there. Alright, so I'm just really going to quickly run through the first mainly 2 moves to mainly get you started to quickly eliminate the first 3 factions. So brand new legendary campaign. First thing to know is that not all campaigns are equal. Some are going to be much harder or easier than others, and it's not necessarily the starting relationship, it is the traits that they do have. This is an excellent one: reliable, defensive, and diplomat. He will probably stay our friend quite easily for the entirety of the campaign, and as you can see, high chance of trade. That's a good way of testing their cooperativeness. This is a very good one, another one that's reliable, diplomat, and admires strong empires. And then man, this is a lottery. This is a really good one. Usually at least one of them will be either aggressive or hate large empires. These ones you do have to watch out for, but this is pretty good. If you have these, this is the perfect roll down here, by the way. That's a very, very safe bottom flank. Up here, you want to at least have one of them be a bit more, this guy's here is unreliable, and this last one as well, aggressive. So you can't always win it all, but the way we'll take care of that is you'll have a revolt. It'll take over as a New Britain faction, peace out with them, and then get them to join one of these wars, okay? So that's how we'll try to keep them busy. So you want to keep the south peaceful and the north here busy. So once you're happy with your starting traits, the first move is always this: get the Franks, join the war against the Saxons. I've never seen them refuse. If they really hate them, they might even do it for 300. No, but they'll do it for free. Okay, good. Now this keeps them busy on this area here. Next up, we have some barbarians in our lands. These two are allied, which means we need to declare on at least one of them. Declare war, and the Eastern Roman Empire may or may not follow you. They did follow you if they don't follow you. If they don't, you'll see it'll ruin the reputation because they've turned their back on you. If that does happen, just offer to join their war against the Tanukids. You do that, and then arrange marriage. Give them Flavius's daughter, and then that'll do it. We don't need to do it this time because they've still stayed happy with us. If they do turn down that war, do this, and it'll stop the relationship degrading because you need that trade revenue to keep yourself afloat. Once you've done that, in the south here, we're going to sign trade deals with all of these guys. You'll start with one on the Garamantians. So sign them for whatever you can get them for. It might be 100, it might be 1400. On this frontier, we will be eliminating the Quadrians at least at turn 3 absolute latest. I get 3 swords, 1 spearman, and we'll keep on building that up. Over here we have Flavius Stilicho, Emperor to be. Have him walk straight past this army and attack Urbus. You should now hire every single mercenary. This can be done with less, but we mainly need the siege engines, but I'm making this nice and achievable for most people to do it. And then run Hilarious over here to reinforce the battle. To fight this battle, simply blow through the gate with a catapult, and then bring your reinforcements around, and then just muscle through the gate. So for turn 1, once you win this battle, disband anything that isn't a ranged unit. The cavalry here, as you can see, it breaks the rule. It's over 200 bucks, and this catapult is ludicrously expensive, so disband all of that. Disband these guys because they're too expensive, but yeah, cheap spears good, cheap archers good, hold on to those. Since you were chasing positive relations at the start of the game with the south, you're very unlikely to have positive relations up here, but that doesn't matter because we're going to disband this army, and anything that does not earn income or resources, we're going to knock down. This is the only church we're going to knock down. I know there's the infamous knock down all your churches meme, so only the military and only the churches get knocked down there. Now, coming down to Gaul, so we are going to eliminate these guys, turn 1. The Vandals are kicking around here, they'll typically knock over this other army, so they'll be eliminated by turn 2, if not close to, but we do have the Suabians, which was our main reason for doing this. So we're going to sandwich them and double pinch them. We're going to hire Honorius, He doesn't deserve a glorious battlefield death, but we're going to give him one because we need him out of the way. But we'll still use him to levy some troops, get 3 spearmen with here. Now bring this army just to the very bottom of this lip here, so just past the territory. So this army should see him and he'll be tempted to get up there and attack him. Also, now that you've hired Honorius, you won't be able to hire him here, but this puts you in a camp stance and this makes him guaranteed to want to attack you. Now hire yourself one more general over here, garrison him, and then hire another 3 units. And again, this is making a nice easy battle. You can do it without those if you're really handy. You don't need to hire this extra one, but I like to make things that are achievable for everyone. So over the end turn, he'll see him as an excellent target. Just simply retreat back. He'll be on out of movement. As you can see, that's right on the edge of what he can get to. And then the following turn, we'll all attack him and make sure you fight manually and get Honorius killed. And this will allow Stilicho to elevate to the purple. Now speaking to Stilicho in the political screen, he's the only one that you're not going to promote. Why? Because why waste his influence on an office when he's going to be an emperor next turn? However, Honorius, we want to waste his influence because he will be dead next turn. So let's just get him to adopt Protectus. It might not work, it doesn't really matter. And then everyone else, let's throw into here, and we'll leave this last spot for the guy just in case we get him adopted. For our governors, we want anyone who either has a tax buff or a research buff or just anything that's going to buff that local income. This guy's got research, excellent. And now you basically want to put all of your governors around this part of Spain. So on this western side, you'll basically be able to get a single general to go up and down, and they can actually cross the strait there to get to the very edge of Africa there. So this side here, you can have a bit loose on public order, but these settlements here, and basically around the top here, you want all those with governors. And we're going to start off here with Tarraconensis because this really does separate Spain from the rest of Gaul, where you will have more generals. So putting this guy in there, excellent. And as you know, we always go bread and circuses. If you're running a bit low on money, you should be able to ask for a loan from the Eastern Roman Empire. Let's ask for $1,000. And they've given it to us. Again, if they start green, they'll be able to do that. You'll usually be able to rustle up some money through other agreements. And now for construction this turn, remember how food is the worst penalty to have? And here we've got -6 food. We can turn that to the positive, but we're not going to build farms. Look, we've got olives. Only 1 squalor for an extra increase of 40 food. Outstanding. And we can trade this. So this is why resources are so good. If you have a look here, we've got wine, olives, and wine. Each one of these should be our priority. The only thing more important than a government building is these in the settlements, like here in Ravenna, where we've got a negative food, which we can get to a positive quite simply by building this and maybe another buff to a farm. So that's what you want to do. Use these resources to increase the food. And other than that, the one thing you want in every single province, the governor's house, and you want to upgrade that to tier 3. So capital, governor's house there. The reason being is, look, it only uses up food, so as long as the food's okay, you get a massive buff in public order as well as more money, so this should snowball. So that's your only priority in terms of civil administration, getting these buildings and government buildings in every single province. Down here in Africa, we're not going to do much, but what we will do is we'll send this guy over. He can take his time, but by turn 3 he should be able to get here, and basically want him centered here because there will be a revolt here. We will want a governor here as well, and also another one in Magna Graecia. So really trying to get that Mediterranean inside here. Not only is it good to keep it under control, but also it does a great buff to the economy, and soon you'll be able to use your ships to basically govern between here and here. And it's all about just jumping around, spotting revolts, but as well as once you get those public order buffs on your generals enough, they can just basically do a bit of a patrol around, elevating that public order, and there you go. On turn 2, you'll discover the Vandals, and they should wipe out the Alamans because you will have sacked and raised that on this turn. The next turn, that should be the only army they have left. The Vandals should take that out, and then try to get the Vandals to join the war with the Ostrogoths, who you also begin at war with. Once you've done that, build yourself up another 3 swordsmen, another 1 spearman, but also hire every mercenary you can here, because the chances are they will attack over the end turn. If not, go and attack them. You can win that battle. Ask the others to join the war, so try to get them fighting amongst each other. When you do finally have revolt, fight manually, tooth and nail, hold on to them, and eventually when you do lose it, they'll hopefully have so few troops they'll peace out and you can make an ally with them. And that really goes for anything out here as well. The moment someone declares war on you, see who else you can get to join the war. The Ostrogoths will attack you early and it's up to you. Try to eliminate them if you can, but don't get greedy. You'll start seeing the AGs over here moving in, and when you get the chance, get an army or 2 armies and just pounce on them, declare war and destroy them in a single turn. Just make sure they're not allied with anyone, and that's what you want. The moment you see these guys marching through your lands, if you can eliminate them and they're not allied to anyone, just wipe them out in a single turn. This one takes a bollocking. Just make sure they don't get any further, because you will spend a lot of time rebuilding this one. The Colonia Agrippina cops it. It's just kind of what happens, okay? But you'll need to try to stay on the cusp of these territories to send each one of your armies to babysit several provinces at once. Basically going out, eliminating factions, making sure you don't have people in here to ruin your public order, making sure you don't have them coming back this way by completely eradicating them, building up governor estates first, building up fishing wharfs as well as food emporiums to give yourself food, only building up major settlements along the frontier where you can defend them with your own infantry, keeping your troops relatively cheap and nimble on the back line, having just a few elite armies on the front line to swap them down, keeping your diplomacy strong, direct the Huns towards your enemies, particularly towards the Sassanid Empire. All of this basically does apply to the Eastern Roman Empire as well. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Predominantly a Total War Warhammer channel, but if you've enjoyed this, please check out the rest of the channel. A lot of time and effort went into this, so I do hope that someone out there finds it useful. It is the hardest campaign in all of Total War. It's definitely a flex if you can try to pull it off, but it is a puzzle more than a reactive beast in itself. It is about knowing what you can and can't do and then executing that, because it's just a prick of a thing. It just throws a whole bunch of things, only some of them work, and you can absolutely sabotage yourself through no fault of your own. So hopefully this means that your run through is a good one. I wish you luck and have yourselves a good one. This is Elven Plot Armor, and I will see you next time. Cheers.